Hey guys, how's it going? I hope everyone is doing really well out there. In today's video, we're going to take a look at a self-hosted app that has really saved me a lot of time over the past few weeks that I've been using it. And today we're going to talk about an app called Postiz. Now, Postiz is an all-in-one social media management tool designed to help users schedule, publish, and analyze their content across multiple platforms. Now, look, I understand that this app isn't going to be for everyone, but if you run multiple social media accounts for work or a side hustle or whatever else that requires you to post on multiple social media accounts regularly, you're going to want to take a look at Postiz. That is, after you watch this video, of course. But before we get into the demonstration and installation of Postiz, let's hear from Nevo, the project's founder.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me on the channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Postiz. Postiz is an open source social media scheduling tool, and it's one of the only one in the market, is the biggest one, 21K stars. I started this project because I felt that there is a huge gap in the market with everything connected to social media scheduling and different things that can increase your productivity. Now, this market exists for almost like 20 years, and it's still the same as before. And it's funny how long it exists and there is not a real good open source solution. So when I just launched Postiz, it just skyrocketed because it was so unique. And still, everywhere you look over the internet, you see how people are happy with Postiz. Postiz is a real self-host solution. That means there is no dual licensing. There is no enterprise guarded features like SSO. Everything that is in the cloud is the same thing as the open source, running it as a self-founder, so I don't have to do anything investors want. And you just can self-host it and get everything. And if you have any problem, just be sure to check out the Discord and you can get instant support. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Nevo for taking the time to jump in on this video. Now, look, I've been using Postiz for a few weeks now, and it's really helped me be much more consistent and maybe even too consistent with posting across 4 different social media platforms and Discord with a relatively low amount of effort. Prior to Postiz, I had a few options. Number one, I could log into certain platforms and schedule posts ahead of time, but that only seems to work on certain platforms. Number 2 is I could log into each platform anytime I wanted to make a post about something, but that, of course, gets very, very tedious. I could also use a third-party solution like Buffer or Hootsuite or something similar, but they're either limited in the number of accounts you can use for free, or they start getting extremely expensive very, very quickly. And, of course, you're using a third-party system to upload your social media posts, and who knows what they're doing with that data behind the scenes. It could be nothing, but we don't really ever know for sure. Now, what's cool is that Postiz is free, open source, and self-hostable, and it currently supports more than 20 different social media platforms and is pretty easy to set up and configure. Now, that said, of course, each platform will have its own requirements for being added to Postiz, so there may be some more difficult areas in adding certain accounts, but we will take a look at that here in a little bit. Anyway, I think that's probably about enough of an intro here. So let's take a look at my self-hosted instance, and then we'll take a look at how easy this is to get installed. Actually, before we get into that, I do have a few disclaimers that I need to make that are starting to make regular appearances in my videos. The first one is that this solution will be using Docker to facilitate the services that we're using for this setup. Now, I won't be going into how to install or use Docker, as that is pretty much outside the scope of this video, but you can always refer to other sources to learn how to get started with Docker and Docker Compose. Number 2 is that this app needs to be exposed to the internet to add certain social media accounts to your setup. They'll require things like callback URLs and that sort of thing. They're only going to be accessible to those sites if your Postiz instance is reachable online. Fortunately, the Postiz documentation has examples on how to configure it with a few different reverse proxies. I'm using Cloudflare tunnels at this point and haven't had any issues, so find a reverse proxy solution that works best for you. Number 3 is that it's super important that you read through their documentation on how to do certain things like adding different social media accounts to your Postiz instance. They're all a bit different and require different steps, but the Postiz documentation has come a long way since I tried it last year, and they're pretty good about keeping it up to date from what I can tell. Now, the last thing is that I'm not the developer of Postiz. I'm not associated with this project in any way. So if you've got questions about functionality, features, errors, etc., I'm not going to be able to help you as much as the devs will. They've got a GitHub and a Discord where you'll have a better time getting answers. And of course, I will have those linked in the video description. So let's take a look at my Postiz setup, and then we'll take a look at how to get it installed. Real quick, before we do that, if you haven't already liked and subscribed,
it'd be a lot cooler if you did.
So now let's take a look at my instance of Postiz. And here we are. And what I love about this, just at a quick glance, is that everything seems to be in the right place, which I know may seem like kind of a no-duh kind of situation, but I really appreciate that everything makes sense where it is. And I want to talk about that real quick, just the general overview, and then we'll break this down into different sections. So as per usual, top left, almost always have a logo up there. We've got some navigation next to that in the center for calendar, analytics, and plugs. Next, we've got languages, we've got light mode and dark mode, settings, and notifications. Coming back over to the left side, of course, it tells us what page we're on. And then we've got our channels under that. And channels are the different social media accounts that we'll be posting to or have the option to post to. Now, currently, I've got Blue Sky, Discord, Facebook, Mastodon, in my case, Fostodon, and X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We can add new channels or we can create a new post. And then, of course, in the middle of the page here is where all of the information is that we're looking for, right? So here we've got what week we're in. We've got the date range that we're looking at. We can do date, week, or month. And then below that, we can actually see how this is laid out. It starts basically at midnight and works all the way through until 11 o'clock p.m., 2,300 hours, if that makes any difference for you. And then Monday through Sunday. Now, I don't like the Monday through Sunday setup here. I wish it was Sunday through Saturday. I know that's a regional thing, but to my knowledge, there's no way to change that. Anyway, below that, in these different time slots, we can see like today is Tuesday, right? But so Monday, we can see that if I hover over these, it's crossed out and it says date passed, and that's true all the way through Monday and even up to 8 o'clock this morning. This was posted earlier. This was posted at 9 o'clock a.m. this morning. Yes, we're going to close that. So here in about 4 minutes, this whole chunk will also be blocked out, and we can't do anything with that hour because it's passed. But beyond that, we can see each of the individual posts that I have scheduled out basically through the rest of the week up to next Sunday. And you can see that I've got them kind of scattered around, like, I have Facebook earlier, Mastodon later, then Blue Sky, and then X or Twitter or whatever, again, you want to call it. And we can get an idea of what my posting schedule looks like for the week. So that's the basic interface that you'll be dealing with once you get all of your different accounts attached to your Postiz instance. And we will take a look at that process a little bit later in this video. But with that said, let's jump back over to my desktop here and take a look at this left column. So as I mentioned, we've got all of our different channels. These are the social media accounts that we have attached to this instance of Postiz. And again, I've got like Blue Sky, for instance, and if I click the 3 dots there, I can update my credentials, I can move or add this to a customer, which is beyond the scope of this video, but you can make this a service that you provide to others where they pay you for it, but we're not going to get into any part of that for this video. We can edit time slots, and what I like about this, if we click that, each social media will have a series of time slots that it will automatically, or that are predefined in the application. So by default, it'll be 9:20 in the morning, 2:10 in the afternoon, or 7 o'clock at night. We can add time slots, delete time slots, whatever, so that we can do less work later. If we know that there are certain times that we want to post on any given day, we can adjust these time slots right here. So I'm going to close that, and it's always going to ask when you close something, are you sure? I'm going to say yes. So, if we take a look at, like, say, Discord here, if I click that, I can change the bot nickname, I can add or move to a customer, edit time slots, disable the channel, or delete. So a lot of this gets kind of repetitive. Facebook, same idea. Mastodon, in my case, Fostodon, move to a customer, edit time slots, disable channel, or delete. Below that, we've got add channel, and this is the different social media accounts that are available to be added to the platform, to the Postiz setup that we have here. Now, each one of these, for the most part, will require a different configuration and a different process to give it access to be posted to from here. That was a weird way to word that sentence, but each one of these will require a certain process to make it available here on the platform to actually use in our channels over here, right? It's a bit of a process, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then below that, we've got the Create New Post button. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And here it's saying, hey, do you want to use a set? Now, sets are kind of basic. You can think of sets like templates, right? So if I wanted to do a post about an upcoming live stream, I could click that, and there is my set, right? This is predetermined, predefined, and then I can, change what we're going to talk about, and I can add an image to that if I want to, and I can modify all of this stuff. But this is more or less what I might use to let people know that I've got a live stream coming up. I can say, yes, I want to close that because I'm going to show you something else here. Again, create a new post, affiliate here. I've just got this for some standard hashtags. But we can also insert hashtags via a signature. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm going to close this. Let's come back over here. We're going to create a new post yet again, and I'm going to continue without a set. Now, typically when I'm doing this, because I still use Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, and it, based out of all of the other social medias that I use, gives me the fewest number of characters per post, I always start there. I click that, and I might say something like, this is a test post while I'm making my Postiz video. And if I hit space, here in a second, OpenAI is going to try to autofill something if I want it to do that. If I don't, I can just click delete and it goes away. But again, I do have OpenAI attached to this for the sake of simplicity and demonstration here. So from here, again, I've got Twitter, X, whatever here, but maybe I also want to post on Mastodon or Fostodon on Facebook and Discord and Blue Sky, right? From here, I can add a signature. Either of those signatures might work, and I can just say like that. I can do an underline, and I can make this. I can come over here and I can say bold, and then I can come down here and I can do some smiley face stuff, right? Oops. From here, I can also insert media. If I click that, here are the images that I've already uploaded to the instance over the past several weeks that I've been using this. Or if I needed to upload something new, I can click right there where it says upload, and then I can select a file from there. And of course, you can click next and that sort of thing. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. And if you happen to follow me on social media, I'm actually going to post this right now. So if you see it, be sure to give it a like, I guess. You're not going to see this until later, right? Oh, so this was actually a request that I made in their Discord. Because I selected Discord, you have to select a channel for this to get posted to. And because I didn't, it's like, hey, here's an error message. You didn't do this right. Select where you want this to go. So while we're over here, and I'm actually glad that it failed on me, so I would remember to come back over here. So that was for Discord, which is, I think, clear. Yeah, it's right there. That's Discord. And again, that's settings, and then I can select a channel. But let's say for whatever reason, I wanted to modify specifically this Blue Sky post. I can click right here where it says edit only David Blue Sky. So if I click that, yes, edit in place. And then this is a test post on Blue Sky, right? And these other platforms won't have that. You can edit each individual platform while making more or less the same post. And I really dig how they've made it possible to do that. Here again, you can see that I'm editing this Blue Sky post and none of the others have the Blue Sky reference in them, right? So again, now that we've got everything more or less the way we want it, I can click post now. We'll give that a second. And here we can see that that was all posted right here. And in fact, If we come over here just real quick, I want to demonstrate this under notifications. Let's pop these open real quick. I don't think that the Twitter is going to work. Let's take a look there, right? There it is. This is Facebook, and this is that blue sky. And notice this says blue sky, and this one doesn't. And this one, again, doesn't say blue sky. So what I love about this is anytime, even if you've got something scheduled, it will let you know not only has it been posted, or throw an error if it hasn't. It will link you directly to each post on each platform, and I love that. So now that we've taken a look at that left column where most of our activity is going to happen for the most part, let's take a look across the top of the page at our calendar, analytics, and plugs. And again, we're on the calendar page, so I don't know why I really included that, but if we jump over to analytics, this is showing me analytics for my Facebook page. And it's showing me page impressions and post engagement, page follows, and video views. And we can break this out into 7 days, 30 days, or 90 days. There is our 30-day look, and there is our 90-day look. Now that said, if I come over to X here, I've had kind of mixed results with whether or not I will actually get any kind of analytics here. And that has to do with API restrictions because I refuse to give them money. If you have a verified account, you'll have a better chance of getting analytics here. But because of the API restrictions on the free account, this may or may not work for you, and I just want to let you know. Now, I've currently only got 2 different platforms that offer analytics. As we saw, Facebook and Twitter. Other platforms may also give you that data. I just don't have any of those attached. So when you come into the analytics page, you may see something very different than what I'm showing here based on what's available via the API. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit. Next, if we come back over to our desktop here and take a look at plugs, which is the last option up here in the center section, there it is. So with, again, varying platforms, you're going to have the ability to have auto repost posts, which is when a post reaches a certain number of likes, repost it to increase engagement. And this parenthetically says 1 week old posts. I'm not entirely sure what that means, if the post has to be older than a week for it to work or whatever. But you can edit this and say, if it gets more than 5 likes or whatever, then it will auto repost that post later. You can also do an auto plug, is when a post reaches a certain number of likes, add another post to it so your followers get a notification about your promotion, right? So again, this is for blue sky. If I click edit, when a post reaches a number of likes, we talked about that. So if I get more than 5 likes on a post, it will automatically post this as kind of a follow-up, like, hey, this is getting a lot of engagement. Then it will automatically post something saying, hey, click here to find me in different places online. And there's a link to my link stack profile. And again, currently this only works for the way I've got things set up with Blue Sky and Twitter, but they're both the same for either one. So the last section of the top navigation is going to be kind of where our settings happen to be. So let's come back over to here. We've got language. So a bunch of different languages there that you can select. Again, we can do light mode, dark mode. We've got settings here where you can add team members. We've got webhooks if you need to use those for any reason. We've got auto post, which I've had mixed results with as well and have opened a ticket about that. Basically, the idea is that if you add an auto post, you'll basically put in an RSS feed for whichever platform you wanted to use. Now, what I wanted to do was use my YouTube RSS feed so that when I published a new video, this would automatically post something on the different social media platforms to let people know, hey, David's released a new video on his YouTube channel. But it didn't work the way it was expected to. I opened a ticket for that. I think it's currently being worked on, but that's the general idea of what an auto post is. Whether it's a YouTube channel or a blog or whatever, you can put the RSS URL in here, and it should, in theory, automatically make a post when a new item has been added to that RSS feed. Again, it's the easiest way to explain it. Next, we've got sets. Again, these are like template setups for different types of posts. Again, I've got that upcoming live stream and my affiliate hashtags that I've got. So if I click this, I can edit what this looks like. I can edit which social media accounts it gets posted to. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. And then, of course, if I wanted to, let I don't know why it's not showing there, but you kind of get the idea. You can basically create social media post templates just to simplify things a little bit. And again, I've got a couple of those. Next, we've got signatures. Again, this is kind of what I was playing with before sets were a thing. So I had a couple of different signatures that I might use so that I could just remember to keep things consistent. So, like again, I've got, self-hosting and home lab as an option for a signature, or I've got the option to just automatically add the signature to each of my posts. And I don't like to do that. And of course, you can add more if you want to or need to. I've just got a couple in each of those different areas. And then next, we've got our public API here. So you can use the Postiz API to integrate with your tools. And of course, there's more documentation on how to do that here. And I think that kind of covers everything here. Again, we've got the bell where we can see all of the different social media posts, or again, if something failed, it will also show up in here as well. So now the last section that we're going to take a look at in my setup here is actually the calendar itself, right? So if I come back over to here, again, we can see all of the different posts that I have scheduled throughout the week, but this looks very bland, very boring, very overly consistent, right? Even though they're each on different social media platforms for the most part, it looks very bland in this setup. And what I love about this is I can, maybe I don't want this posted at 2 o'clock. Maybe I want it posted at 1 o'clock instead. I can just drag these to where I want them and mix things up a little bit if I wanted to. Or, I decided, this one I actually want over here, and this one I actually want over there. You can drag and drop these wherever you want them. Or if you wanted to, you could click here and edit this individual post in line where we are currently. Again, you can add signatures, you can do bold or underline or whatever you need to do. And I really, really appreciate how simple they've made it to be able to move things around. Or, maybe you're like, man, I don't know, maybe I should post something here. You can just click there and again, go through that process of creating your post, selecting the platforms that you want to use, whatever the case is. This area is actually where I spend a pretty good amount of time rearranging things once I've actually got all of my posts configured. So there actually is one other thing that I want to talk about real quick with regards to creating posts. Not everybody's going to want this, and it's why I've got it separated into its own little segment here, and that's using AI to create social media posts. Now, as it currently stands, this only has the option to use OpenAI and doesn't have the option to use a locally hosted Ollama or something like that. It's been brought up a couple of times in their discussions, both I think on GitHub and their Discord, and I don't know that they're going to incorporate Ollama, but I just wanted to clarify that currently the only thing that's available is OpenAI, at least at the time of recording this video. So again, if we come back to my desktop, let's create a new post. We're going to continue without a set. And I'm going to come down here to this little icon right down here. I'm going to click that. And I'm going to type in, I need a
quirky, fun post about the struggles of self-hosting. It should be engaging and maybe ask questions. Oops.
Right? That was harder than it should have been. And I'll click enter. And there it is. And there's this. And it's like, hey, do you want to customize this for a specific platform or schedule it to your connected channels? So I could say schedule this for this day at this time, and it would do that. However, I don't want to do that. But if we come over, it says, why is it that self-hosting always sounds like a breeze until your server throws a tantrum at 2 a.m.? Just me? Or does anyone else have a router that only crashes after you leave the house? What's your funniest or most frustrating self-hosting fail? Drop your stories below and let's commiserate. It's added some emojis in there. It's added some hashtags in there. So if you wanted to go this route, you could absolutely create social media posts with AI. Again, at the time of recording this, only using OpenAI though. So just something to keep in mind. So that's the general gist on how to use Postiz. And of course, that's going to change based on how you're using it, what your needs are, that sort of thing. And of course, I've only got a few different accounts in there. You can add several if that's what you need to do for your setup. But in order to do that, we actually have to get Postiz installed first. So I want to take a look at what that process looks like. So if we jump over to the Postiz docs, again, all of this will be linked in the video description. We've got our introduction here. They've got their own YouTube channel, and it kind of talks about what it is, how it works. There's a quick start guide here. And then there are some installation methods that we can take a look at. Now there's Docker Compose, which is how I'm using this. There's also Docker Standalone, Kubernetes with Helm, Development Environment, Dev Container, and Coolify. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, there are some reverse proxy configurations, how to add a new provider, Docker Compose configuration, email notifications. There's a lot of different stuff in here to get this customized for how you might want to use it. So if we come up, let's start with the Docker Compose aspect of this. Again, that's how I'm using this. So if we click here, there's a tutorial for the Docker Compose install on their YouTube channel. And this guide assumes that you already have Docker installed with a reasonable amount of resources to run Postiz. This Docker Compose setup has been tested with a virtual machine, Ubuntu 2404, 2 gigs of RAM, 2 vCores. If we take a look at my environment here, that's my default LXC configuration, so I didn't even realize I'd already met the requirements, but that's how I've got it set up, and it's been working pretty much flawlessly since I got everything configured. So if we come back over to here, it says this section will ask you to install and configure several services explained below. There's some network requirements, so if you're going to access this just locally, then you can set that to not secure. If you can't use an HTTPS configuration, though I think you should if you've got that option. Again, there are other things that you can use. I think we talked about earlier in this video, I showed earlier, for instance, like looking at Facebook. You don't necessarily have to have this exposed to the internet. If you scroll down to here, there is this service. I guess you can use this redirect me to, and then it's a local service, but then you're reliant on this third-party organization to keep doing what they're doing, and I'm trying to stay away from that. So I've got mine exposed to the internet on a domain name. So just kind of wanted to clarify that you don't have to have this on an HTTPS configuration, but it does require you to rely on another third-party service. So let's come back over here to Docker Compose for this. Network ports. You may need to make these available on your firewall or not block them from communicating out. This doesn't require port forwarding. These are just the ports that you may be using through the configuration on this. So I think it's just there for your information and what those ports are for. Yeah, most ports do not need to be exposed, or most users don't need to expose this port publicly. So it's just letting you know what each port does. Below that, we get a bit of a diagram on how everything works. Installation prerequisites, and they've got some stuff here. So option A, the environment variables are in your Docker Compose. That's how I've got it configured, but it is better practice probably to put your environment variables in an env file, but that's up to you. And then there's this configuration reference page, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is, in fact, I'm gonna actually have to zoom out just a little bit, I think. This is the Docker Compose that I'm using more or less. Right, we've got our service, which is Postiz. We've got the GitHub container repository for where you're gonna pull this from, and it's gonna be the latest app, or the latest version of this image. There are specific app versions that you can use if there's new functionality that comes out before it's posted to latest. And sometimes pinning a version isn't a terrible idea. I actually did that for a while with this. When a fix that I'd requested came through, I just grabbed that version and used it. But now that it's been merged, I'm actually using the latest tag on this, but that can have its own quirks if you're not ready for it. So again, the container name is Postiz. The restart policy is always. The environment variables here, we've got our main URL, our front-end URL, which are the same. Our next public back-end URL, which is the same thing, /API, and your JWT secret. Like it says, it's just a random string of characters. Just mash your keyboard a little bit and it'll be fine. That's just for like cookies and things like that in the background. Next, we've got some database stuff, both for Postgres as well as Redis. For the Postgres stuff, you should probably change the user and the password here just for the sake of security. The backend internal URL, I didn't change this. It's fine. Is general, required for self-hosting, so don't change that. Disable registration, I've got this set to true. I don't want just anybody to be able to register on my setup. Storage provider is local, though there are other options. Upload directory is /uploads. And the next public upload directory is /uploads. Probably don't change any of those either. We've got some volumes for config and uploads. We've got ports. We've got our network that everything will be on to communicate with each other within this Docker Compose. It depends on the Postgres and the Redis not only being up, but being healthy, as we can see in those two lines there. Next, again, we've got our Postgres set up here. If you change the username and password up here, like I mentioned, also be sure to match it down here for the username and password in this area. Those need to line up or the database and the app won't be able to connect. Same thing with the database. If you change that up at the top, change it here. We've got our volume for the Postgres database. The network is the same, again, so they can all communicate more easily. And then we do a health check, and that is how we know that it's healthy so that the application can start. It's basically the same thing for the Redis container here. We're using Redis 7.2, the container name, restart always. All of this is fairly standard stuff. Sorry, I was just checking. I didn't remember if the Postgres database also had that same restart policy there. Again, the volume and the network, fairly standard. Below that, we define all of our volumes and we define our network. Now, the thing to keep in mind with this configuration is that there isn't anything in here for the individual social media accounts. And to my knowledge, the only one that will work out of the box without anything in here is Blue Sky, because you just click it and it asks you to log in and then you're done because of their API configuration on the Blue Sky setup. If you want to add additional, or if you want to add your different social media accounts, like we would have over here, like I said, each one of these will have a different requirement on how you're going to get basically down here your client and your secret for the API. So you'll need to make sure that you follow all of the directions for each of these different platforms, whether it's Discord or again, Facebook here. LinkedIn, I haven't used in so long, but they've also got some requirements in here. Mastodon was one of those things that originally was only mastodon.com, but they made it so you can use any Mastodon-based server. They don't have it here, but I've actually got it in a Docker Compose that I'll show in a minute. Pinterest, Reddit, Slack, all of these have different requirements for getting effectively the key and the secret for the API to be able to post from here. So if we take a look at my Docker Compose, and I apologize for jumping around a little bit, there's just a lot of little bits and pieces that eventually have to kind of plug in together, right? So again, we've got all of the stuff that we already saw here, and it's at this point right here where things change a little bit. Now these things, oops, I screwed that up. There should be a thing there. I'll fix this and put a different URL in the description. But this is where your Facebook app ID and your Facebook secret would go. Your Mastodon URL, which is a variable that's not in their documentation yet. So, but again, the client ID, the client secret, again, same thing for X, same thing for Discord. And then down here, I've also got an email provider set up to send me notifications when things get posted or there's a problem. So this should realistically probably go in an env file, though it's not required. But you just need to go in and add the required environment variables, whether it's in the Docker Compose or the env file, and go through the steps on each one of these that you want to use to get those bits of information and include it in your Docker Compose. Okay, so let's talk about deploying Postiz for just a minute. The actual deployment process isn't terribly difficult. You can obviously use a docker compose.yml file in your terminal, your SSH window, or whatever you want to call it. Or we can do like I'm going to do, and I'm going to use Portainer. Now, I'm already logged into a Portainer instance here, and I'm going to click on Stacks. If you're not familiar with Portainer, this is a graphical user interface to more easily manage Docker containers. It is itself a Docker container to manage other Docker containers. It is not its own operating system. It's just a way to manage other Docker containers. So I've got I'm in Stacks. This is where we will put our Docker Compose. So I'm going to click on Add Stack. I'm going to call this Postiz tutorial. And I'm going to and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it in there. And then I've got that error that I need to fix, which is right there. And then everything there is fine. Now, again, all of this is just nonsense data. This isn't actually going to deploy, or it's not actually going to allow me to connect to any of the different social medias. It'll throw errors if I try. But there's something that I want to show you. There's a couple of things that I want to show you here. So I'm happy with all of the nonsense that's in here. Of course, you'll want to change these values based on the different socials that you want to use. Once you're happy with all of that, you're going to click on Deploy the Stack. And this will take a couple of minutes to download. And here in a second, I'm going to show you why. Okay, so here we are several minutes later. I'll put on the screen how long that actually took. And if we take a look at this, we can see that Postiz, let's scroll up, Postiz, Postgres, and Postiz Redis are all deployed. But let's first take a look at the image sizes for those. Well, that's Cloudflare. So Postgres, 278 megs, Redis, 116 megs. Postiz 4.4 gigabytes for the Docker image to make this run. I was looking at this earlier from images that I had downloaded from testing months ago, and they were about half that size or a little over half that size. So hopefully they can get that under control. That is one of my biggest complaints about this setup so far. The other thing is if we come to containers, again, if we take a look at Postiz here and click that, here we can see progress resolved 26, reused 24, downloaded 1. Let's actually come back to here, and we're just going to click on port 5000 here. It's not going to work. So if I click here we can see that we've got a couple more lines. That's good. This is actually running a little bit faster than previous experience, but now we need to wait for this entire process. So we're going to do that, and then again, when we come back, I'll throw up on the screen how long this setup process took. So here we are several minutes later. I'm gonna throw that up over the screen so that you can see once you get to the point in the logs, at least if you're using Portainer, where the text turns green. Once you start seeing that sort of thing, everything should be up and running. But that took however many minutes are up here on the screen at this point to deploy the container once it was downloaded. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes during this deploy, but with the image file, the Docker image file being like 4.5 gigs currently, and having to wait for that to download in conjunction with, again, however long it took to deploy this once it was downloaded, that's a really long time to wait for this to spin up. And if you messed up one of your API keys or the configuration in there, and you've got to go fix it and redeploy it, it's going to take that long each time you have to redeploy, again, at least at the time of recording this video. And that's honestly my biggest complaint about this is if you need to add a new social media, while it won't have to re-download the image, which I'm thankful for, it will have to go through this redeployment process each time. And that's super painful. I've talked to them about this, and one of the developers told me that he's got like 8 cores and like 32 gigs of RAM assigned to his Postiz instance, and it still takes him several minutes to deploy. And I hope that they can eventually get that solved, because this is my biggest complaint, is the amount of time it takes to deploy. So taking out the amount of time it takes to actually deploy this, once everything is up and appears to be ready to go, you should then be able to go to the URL that you set up in your Docker Compose and start going through the process of setting up your account, adding additional social media profiles to this, and start posting there, scheduling things out however you want to use your instance of Postiz. Again, my only complaint is how long it takes to actually deploy. I've been using it for almost a month at this point, and have actually found it super, super helpful for me to just sit down while I'm drinking my morning coffee. I drink tea out here a lot during live streams, and I think I got my brain confused. Anyway, I can sit down a couple of times a week and schedule a bunch of posts out, letting people know what I've got going on, or if there's a new video, or asking questions for engagement, that sort of thing. I can do that a couple of times a week versus having to remember to log in to all of my different socials and make posts periodically, sporadically, whatever. It's made me more engaging online, or more engaged online, or maybe both, as well as saved me a ton of time. So I only have to do this a couple of times a week. And then I can spend the rest of my time making videos or answering emails or whatever else it is I need to do to keep this YouTube channel in a forward-moving direction. So I think if you can forgive the deployment time, it's a great application. Again, I hope they get that kind of stuff under control. Definitely check out the links in the video description where you can find more information about how to get this deployed, how to how to add the different social medias that are available to it, that sort of thing. Again, they've got a Discord and a GitHub. I encourage you to visit those as well if you run into any issues. They're super responsive based on my experience. But I think that's kind of where I'm going to wrap this up. Again, it's an app that I know isn't for everyone, but I think for the people that it's for, it's a great app and does a lot of really cool things to help simplify things. So I hope you found the video helpful, entertaining, whatever. I hope you found it useful. That's the word I was looking for. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. That's the easiest, fastest way to help me out here with the channel. But I think with all that said, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you in the next video.